Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs, building that offensive line group in the 2025 cycle, landing the commitment from four-star offensive lineman Dontrell Glover from the state of Georgia, a kid that we've talked a lot about over the last couple of weeks. And you look at him committing to Georgia and you just say, this makes so much sense. You look at Dontrell Glover and say, phenomenal athlete out of his stance. And why I think he fits within this Georgia offensive line so well. You look at Georgia, how they want to run the football, what they ask their offensive linemen to do, pulling to the play side, getting to the perimeter, getting to the second level. If you want to play at Georgia on the offensive line, you got to be a big functional athlete. And Dontrell Glover, although not necessarily the massive imposing frame that you see some other Georgia offensive linemen have, this is a guy that is really physical at the point of attack. And at 6'2", he is a phenomenal athlete, gets out of his stance well, gets to the play side, gets to the second level. I think this one makes a lot of sense for Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs. And you look at Dontrell Glover and say, maybe not the towering upside that a guy like Amarius Mims had coming out of high school. It's really hard to see Dontrell Glover not being a damn solid offensive lineman for this Georgia program, and why that's so important. You look at why Georgia has had so much success over the last couple of years. One position that they've never had to address in the transfer portal is on the offensive line. And it's because they recruit these kind of guys at the high school ranks, guys that you just know are going to be really good football players at the SEC level. This one makes a lot of sense. Fired up to get into the film. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys, to the Georgia fans. I'll just say this. We had 12 months ago, we had just a massive amount of offensive linemen commit to Georgia, and seemingly was like a couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of see an avalanche of commitments for Georgia on the offensive line over the next couple of weeks as well. This is kind of the time period where Georgia starts racking them up. Going to be a fun next couple of weeks. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Dontrell Glover. And I first want to start with just the athleticism that he has. You dive into the film, playing that left guard spot right now, and he's so comfortable getting out of his stance and getting to the perimeter, getting to the play side on his pulls, and then getting to the second level. I mean, this is a guy at 6'2", 315, always looking for work at the second level. And when he is engaged with opposing defenders, I mean, that upper body strength is kind of next level. He can do whatever he wants with opposing defensive linemen, really functionally strong, and a really polished offensive lineman. You take a look at this rep right here. This is kind of textbook. He's smart, getting to the second level, sealing off that second level defender, getting an explosive play on the ground. The fundamentals that Georgia always does so well on the offensive line, Dontrell Glover has that, but he's got some big-time power in his hands, big-time grip strength. When he's engaged with opposing defenders, these guys are not getting off the blocks of Dontrell Glover. This is a really good example of what he can do just getting on his down blocks. Really, really big power in his hands. And you're not necessarily surprised. Low pads coming in, just collapsing this guy down. Really, really good athlete in space. Again, when he is engaged, you're not getting off this block. Grip strength is absolutely incredible. Has that upper body flexibility as well. You just kind of love the physical traits that Dontrell Glover brings to the table. Again, you see that upper body functional strength, just kind of doing what he wants with opposing defensive linemen. He's nasty. He's an athlete. I think this checks a lot of boxes for this Georgia offensive line. And again, you're going to see them really start to build pretty solid in pass protection. I mean, this is a guy that's going to play guard, but holds up nicely as a tackle and pass pro. And you take a look at Georgia in the 2025 class. I mean, it's no surprise that we're looking at a top 5 class. Again, there's an emphasis on front 7 defenders and offensive linemen. I'm just going to throw this one out for the Georgia fans. There's a lot of smoke around David Sanders, Clemson, Ohio State. This is just a feel. I'm no Steve Wilfong out here. I just kind of we just break down the commitments. We don't necessarily report on them. It does feel like Georgia is in it a lot more than what you're hearing about with David Sanders Jr. You look at the offensive line development that Georgia has had at Ohio State, Clemson. They're the teams making the noise right now. I would not be surprised if somewhere down the road, Georgia recruitment. Again, David Sanders Jr., one of the more special offensive linemen that I've seen at the high school level. We'll see if Georgia can make a run at David Sanders Jr. We'll cut it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.